I'm Joy Randels, serial entrepreneur. I'm on venture number 16 right now, I think. Raised about 370 million in venture capital, taken a couple companies public, everything in the tech space. I have invested in other ventures in the past, but I now have chosen to do the things I know how to do well. How about that? I can't hear him.
Anthony. Can you hear me now? We can hear you.
Yes, I can.
I just had to take off my headphones, I guess.
That's okay.
So I'll rewind. I'll start over. So my name is Anthony Escamilla. I'm the former founder of Uni, and we created a gamified advertising model that connected and engaged businesses with the millennial demographic, and we did that through a mobile app. And I just completed some remote work for a Google-funded startup out of San Francisco. And I'm at the part where I really want to start a new business because one of the biggest things, obviously, about Future Founders program is they help people with their businesses. And the team has been great as I've been going through this transition of trying to find my next venture. But at the same time, I still need to pay the bills and I still need to eat. Right? And ramen noodles is okay, but I still need to eat. So my question to you is, what steps should I take to find a new problem to solve for my next business, but making sure it's something that I'm passionate about? Because as we know, you can get burnt out if you don't believe in 100%.
Yes. So are there one or two things you feel really passionate about?
And I wrote a couple of things down to the team, and again, the team has been super supportive and helping me out. I think I'm passionate about a lot of things, but the biggest thing for me is I need to have a project where I'm making some sort of social impact.
Okay.
And I'm very solidified on that. I need to have some sort of social impact where I can wake up in the day and I'm saying I'm doing a difference for the world. The other things can be up into music and athletics. However, those are secondary because if I found something more focused in it, people that I'm not necessarily familiar with, but it did some sort of social impact that I really appreciated, I'd probably jump into it.
Okay. So I think two things. I do think it has to be something that you believe in. I also think it has to be a real problem that people will pay money for, right?
Yeah.
So my current company, Citizinvestor, right? It's a civic engagement and crowdfunding platform, but we're a for-profit entity. So I don't believe that social and profit have to be exclusive. I think that, you can do both of those things.
Yeah.
I think that the next step is understanding kind of what you want to achieve, meaning your own goals. So like, what do you want to achieve? And that doesn't always mean money, but finance is a part of it. So, what are your financial goals? How much time are you willing to put into the business? And don't, not say like, I want to build something and exit in 12 months. It's like, how much time on a regular basis? Because you never know how long you're going to be in a venture. I've thought some were going to last a really long time and somebody came along and offered us enough money, we sold them early. So thinking about how long you want to spend in it. And then the ethereal or social component, right? Like, what kind of things do you want to make social impact on? Is it, children in emerging countries? Do you want to make a social impact in your own backyard? Those kind of things. And that'll kind of lead you to some different things and then say like, okay, what kind of problems are there what could resolve those problems? Like, what kind of things are there? And is it something that corporations, this is a very interesting thing, because you could do a completely different corporate venture, right? And donate a portion of your money to something that is social impact. I have a really good friend of mine that started a thing called Red Tide Wear. And so Red Tide Wear is 10% of all the profits go to Red Tide Research. But it's a for-profit company, and they make clothing for like surfers and, swimmers and fishermen and those kind of things, right? So it could be something like that. I think once you kind of have 2 or 3 of those, then where are you located at right now? Are you
I'm in New York.
Great. Actually, there's a billion people that love everything on every corner, so no problem. I would say once you kind of have 2 or 3 of those that you think, yep, I could really go with this and I would feel good about it, then I would say kind of just on a piece of paper, this is how I think I would approach the problem and, go find between 10 and 25 people who would be your customer and go float that idea with them. Just like literally, on your way to work, like go to Starbucks, have coffee with them, whatever, right? Or go to a meetup where there's a bunch of them in one room and say like, hey, I'm thinking about this problem. If, what would it take? What would this look like to you? If I went to solve this, would you be involved? Would you pay money for a solution that looked like this? And how would you feel about that? Particularly if you're appealing to a corporation, right? selling an enterprise product where there's a social good component, a portion of your profits go there, is great PR for them. Generally today, corporations try to be socially responsible. And the reason I say that, you can certainly do a B2C play, but B2B plays, the thing I will say about that is it's very easy to identify your customer. Your customers will give you feedback. They will tell you what they want to have happen to the product because they have a longer term vision for where they're going. You can figure out exactly what they'll pay for it. And you can do that all before you build the product, right? And then you've got a customer base. So you said, well, if I built this, would you be my beta customer? Would you do this for me? Right? And if you get half a dozen companies that have a real name out there as your beta customer, you get to launch out the gate with something that, solves a problem, that has a social good component to it. And you know that you're going to have cash flow going in, which makes it very easy if you need an investor to go get an investor. And if you do that, the guys I would suggest you go talk to in New York are the Archangel Fund.
Okay.
So they're great guys, but they get that enterprise play. Most of the guys that are in there made their money in the enterprise software space that are part of that group. And they're good mentors. My friend Jeff Finkel runs that group. And he and I went back to Cheyenne Software, which was a company we took public together. Does that make sense?
No, that does make a lot of sense, and I really appreciate all that feedback. And I know it's an open-ended question on my end, but those are the things that I'm thinking about right now. I'm trying to really break it down and stuff. Like, there's so many problems out there, right? And I'm very understanding of that. And I come up with these ideas all the time. However, how can I really approach it to say, in turn, am I still making that social impact, but am I getting paid? And all my employees paid? Yeah. So that's what I've been.
Do you want to stay in New York?
No, it doesn't matter to me.
Oh, all right.
It doesn't matter.
But I'm going to say, New York is a great place for you to be able to test a lot of ideas because there's a lot of stuff going on there. My personal opinion is on the East Coast. New York and Atlanta are great cities for two kind of different reasons. Atlanta's kind of the New York of the South, right? It's cheaper to live in, but it's kind of like the New York of the South. But you've got Fortune 500 headquarters or offices. You have about 490 in each one of those metro areas within an hour's commute in any direction, which makes it great for getting new customers. Both of them are New Yorkers get a bad rap, but New Yorkers I think in tech are pretty amenable to having conversations, to talking and making introductions and things like that. And the companies, because they see so much, I can tell you as a startup, I've had Lehman Brothers as a client in New York, right? For a company that was a startup. So they're open to having those conversations if you're solving a real problem, for them. And maybe part of it, if you don't know what you want to do, is to literally have some of those conversations like, hey, find people in the companies that you think you would want as customers and go sit down with them and say, like, hey, what's the biggest problem that you have? And a great way to find a lot of that information about what their objectives are is in the annual report. So every company's annual report, public company, will have the top priorities for the next year in it. The CEO puts that mandate in there, and it'll usually be 2 or 3 things. So that will tell you kind of like where they're going. So if you think you might want them as a customer, those reports are all public record. Go take a look at them and just download the PDF and do a quick search, right, for priority and see where it takes you. You don't have to read the 200-page crazy annual report, but it'll give you kind of like what the CEO is targeting. And particularly if you go after a niche, like in New York, right, fintech is a big niche, but those companies get a really bad rap. So something that would allow them to make a social impact that would make them feel good about that. And maybe if it's something around that, it's something in third world countries or things like that they could do, or educating kids in our country about money and what to do with money, things like that. So it could even be like an after school program that's educating kids that are coming out of, disparaged neighborhoods or cities that are in the need of turnaround. I mean, it could be something that simple, and that you're putting money into a program that would actually help those kids, better themselves. That could be a huge deal to them. And you might even get them to sponsor the development of your platform. Thinking about this, right, what it costs to do that today, like if you got 10 companies to write you a check for $25K, you could do all the development that you needed. And that would be a pretty easy ask in the fintech district in New York.